Hello, and welcome back to Control-Alt-Lead, the podcast from computing where we talk to IT leaders at the sharp edge of strategy. Before we begin, video viewers will notice a complete mess behind me. That's because we're currently having our spare room redecorated, which means my office is a dumping ground. Apologies, that's just the way it is when you have a baby. Anyway, this week I am talking to Peter Brown, engineering lead at Lloyds, all about how the company has used AI to transform at a massive scale. Now, we've all heard about AI wins and losses many times over the last few years. But Lloyd's case really is interesting. It's estimated that about 1 in 2 people in the UK is a Lloyd's customer. So, as I say, gigantic scale. They're using it in some really interesting ways, and Pete and I really get into the nitty-gritty. A side note, I first met Pete face-to-face at the UK IT Industry Awards 2025. We just reopened entries for the IT Industry Awards 2026. So, if you have a great success story, something to share, something you really want to shout about, please do let us know about it. Go to ukitindustry.awards.co.uk or computing.co.uk to find out more. Now, enough said, on with the show. Today, I'm joined by Pete Brown from Lloyds, the engineering lead, and I will let him introduce himself. So, Pete, over to you.
Thank you, Tom. Peter Brown. So I head up engineering across a couple of digital labs. A digital lab, just to understand what a lab means, is 100 to 120 odd people, normally split 70-30 between business and tech. So 70% being engineering, 30% being the business type roles, and they can be like product owners or customer journey managers, and then in the tech space, all the usual kind of roles that you suspect. And I look after a couple of digital labs, and in those 2 digital labs, we are heavily focused, and our strategy's been all about AI. So I'm looking forward to getting into some of the questions that you're bound to be asking about that.
I mean, AI is the big one, right? It's dominating IT at the moment. So, of course, I've got to ask about it. What is Lloyd's intent with that AI? Not just, hey, you should use AI.
Yeah.
What are the outcomes that you're going?
Yeah, really good question. I mean, let's just start with what is the purpose of Lloyd's? It's to help Britain prosper. I'm really proud to work for an organisation that serves 30 million customers. So that's like 1 in 2 people in the UK. And with a colleague base of roughly 70,000 people. Don't hold me to the number, it's roughly around that. And the fact that we can make a difference to our customer base and to our colleague base, and we're really passionate about not only serving up great solutions and benefits to our customers, but also making sure we're helping our colleagues and basically learning from doing it ourselves as well before we push things out to our customers. So a really good space to be. I think there's 2 ways of looking at this. So from a customer perspective, especially in my space, in the retail space that I look after in these 2 digital labs, I've got like 6 different products across them both. A couple of them are signature. They've been in the press, they've been in the media. Charlie Nunn and others have been speaking about them in the public eye. We've got something called Athena, where we've rolled it out to all of our colleagues to serve our customers. So they have our knowledge base hosted in a system that they can actually search for the answer straight away in front of the customer. So they're not searching through pages or going to favorites and stuff. So it serves up, obviously, in a Gen AI way, the latest and greatest sort of procedures that they need to follow, which is really key, actually. So if you've got a customer coming into a branch and, I don't know, something really sensitive like a bereavement, like if you're a new colleague serving and looking after that customer, you don't want to be searching around for 10 minutes about how do I deal with a bereavement. So writing that into a chat function and getting it served up in a really clear formatted way is really helping our customers across the whole of our retail estate. And we're going beyond retail. We've now launched it across the whole of the bank. So we've got 33,000 colleagues who use Athena to serve our customers.
Can I just say, I really love that you've used Athena, Goddess of Knowledge, as the name for the knowledge base.
Yeah.
It's a nice one.
We get creative and we allow our teams to play with names to give products a meaning and feeling. We've got Merlin. That's our complaint solution. Really topical, really key, integral to how we're helping our customers on complaint space. The Wizard, so Merlin. We're with what's out there at the moment, I think it's pretty evident, and I'm not saying anything that's new news, but there's motor finance and there's lots of different complaint angles now in terms of the volume of complaints we're getting in. So it's been a really key area for us to make sure that we're trying to help serve our customers in the quickest and efficient way. And what we've done in the Merlin space in an in-house build is used AI solutions to start with to classify our complaints to make sure that they actually go to the right place. So when humans used to do it, used to only get them, believe it or not, 60% of the right at the first start of case management. Now we use Merlin, it gets it right 91% of the time, so it sends it to the right place in the first place. And then once the complaint manager's got it, we then use Merlin to summarize it and to serve up a treatment strategy using Athena again, in terms of how do I actually deal with this complaint? And then we're automating it through to actually what's the resolution. So it's a really quick, we've got the complaint, where does it need to go to? How do I use it? How do I actually treat it? What is the summary of the complaint? Is there anything that we need to be thinking about? We've done some really good stuff about making sure that we're aware of the vulnerabilities. If there's really high critical vulnerabilities that we need to deal with first, they come to the top of the shop. So top of the queue. So been really good in the Merlin space. We've done outcome testing as well, where we've done speech to text. So if you ring up or message into us, we've been able to transcribe that from speech to text, put it into a language that everyone understands, do some really cool speech to text modeling, and serve up the insights in a really easy way, so that you can understand what the sentiment of the call is, where you need to get to in the call to understand how the customer either was or wasn't treated in the right way, so we can deal with it as a immediate proactive step. And that's been brilliant. And we've done that across millions of calls now, which is unheard of, I think, across the industry. And then I save the final one that I mix into there is called Hive, which is all around agentic operations.
Okay. I'd love to dig into the agentic stuff, actually.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting sort of angle. That is the newest development in AI. And I think this space is changing faster than anyone expected, honestly, 2022, when ChatGPT first broke onto the scene. How is agentic manifesting in Lloyds, and what is that bringing to the table in terms of what you couldn't do before?
I think at this point, as head of engineering, it's probably key that I just explained if no one knows what because agentic sometimes can be used in the wrong way or loosely. So when I talk about agentic solutions, these aren't AI solutions that you get off open source, or they're not just an LLM, the tool. It's a case of giving an input, an outcome with inputs into a solution that an entity in its own right, which could be made up of an agent, sub-agent. You need to define where the boundaries are of an agent as well, which is a really interesting one to dive into. But then alongside that, what's the tooling and what it's going to call and what's the reasoning in that, and what the context window is going to be to get from input to output to conclusion. So you're giving the objective into an entity in its own right, and then it starts to make decisions for you. And it might then have a agent to agent kind of orchestration of, actually, I've worked out that this is happening, and now I want to go and speak to that agent over there to actually take the action. And then you have things like agent as a judge, and things to make sure that the agent's doing what it should be doing, whilst having a human in the loop as well. So I always think it's quite key to make sure that we're using our language or terminologies in the right way, because I sometimes see different people throw around, I'm doing something agentic, and you're like, well, you're not. You're just doing a really good classification using Roberta from an open source AI solution.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of AI washing going on.
Yeah,
people are saying that AI are doing agentic, and really it's just some basic automation.
Yeah, and look, we've not made it easy for ourselves. Like there's lots of terminology out there. There's new models coming out every day, whether it's inner sourced or open sourced. And some of the naming conventions is always difficult in the tech landscape. So I can imagine it's hard to keep up. So don't beat yourself up if you are getting these things wrong, but just make sure that you're aware of when you are publicly or talking to senior stakeholders in your own organizations, you're trying to get the right terminology so you can encourage the right behaviors. But anyway, you didn't ask me about that. You asked me about agentic operations in general. So yes, it's moving quick. Yes, we need to consider the factors that I just talked to you about a moment ago. Some of the stuff, some of the thinking with some of the big tech firms, like take Google, AWS, some of the out the box kind of things and solutions that they have. Google's ADK is really good. ADK being the agent developer kit, like they're developing it. But the weirdest thing is they're developing it alongside you as well. So you're getting first-hand experience of what they're developing, and the new versions are coming out all the time. But so some of that out-the-box solutions are really good. With ADK, with Agent Engine, with comes observability metrics, things that you can use straight away. But then you need to obviously think about what's the business problem? What's the logic that needs to go into this? Where's the boundaries of the agent? What does the agent look like? Where's the prompt engineering around it? And then more importantly, the biggest thing that I'm pushing as a leader across all my teams is responsible AI element. So working with the FCA, we're really thinking about, doing it responsibly. So
this is something I wanted to ask you about, is responsible AI in financial services. You hold a huge amount of very personal data, and you have already things like know your customer, like ethics has always been very important. AI shines a spotlight on that. So what does responsible AI look like in the context of the financial services sector?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I suppose when we're developing AI solutions, the first and foremost that we have to think about is whether it's deterministic or not. And we might be in certain spaces where it's really rigid and deterministic, and it's not as simple as giving what I said earlier about giving an agent an outcome and just going to go off and do what it wants to do. So you can kind of work around the perimeters of ensuring that you've got some of the guardrails in place to help with the responsible AI situation. So we've got a few different layers to this. We've got a centralized guardrail that we use across the bank in its entirety. We have local guardrails that we put in place depending on the business case or the business unit that we're working with. We then need to make sure we know kind of what the agent's doing, right? Where's it going? Where's the traceability of that agent? Where's the audit logs? Where's the justification? There might be occasions, or there will be occasions where we might burst out something that's happened. Or even if we've got the architecture and we try and split it down to the micro level architecture for agents, which I'll explain why in a moment. But we might need to say to the business or the human in the loop or an agent in that space, like, I'm going to have to just bring that down gracefully because it's not working as we expect. Wrapped all around this, it's your ongoing observability and evaluation and the models evaluations that we constantly are doing behind the scenes to ensure that it is reliable, it is accurate, it's been trained on the right data, it's been tested on the right data, and it's been rolled out in the right manner. So there's all of those layers, which sound easy when I'm saying it. It's difficult to obviously wrap in or make it work in reality. And what we're trying to do is be really transparent with it to showcase like agent A done like this, and this is the audit log, and this is how we reverse it. This is what would happen if it's gone wrong, and here's all the test points that we put around it. I think it's safer to say that in a weird way, agents is going to be more transparent than humans, because humans do a really good job actually of hiding information in their head without even knowing it. So there's a real good balance of how far do you take agents and doing what's responsible versus having so much data, being overwhelmed with so much around understanding where to go with next.
So just two more questions about agents before we move on to something else. The first is, you talked there about having transparency in agents. How are you working with that? Because AI in general has been criticized for being very black box. You put the input in, you get out, you don't know how it got. How are you dealing with that situation?
Yeah. So it's the way you architect it though. So if you've got agents and sub agents and you've got the boundaries of what they can do and how many tools that they can call upon, let's bear in mind that this is in the public eye. This is like your general people out there using LLMs to manage their own personal mailboxes and stuff. Like, it's our choice to where we deploy them, how we deploy them, and how we connect them up, and what models to use and what models not to use. So we've got approved models. We've got ways of working in the bank, from control towers down to like ethics governance boards, to make sure that we're doing everything that we expected to do. And then we've got our own ability to safeguard that with either the prompt engineering around it, whether it's user context or the system prompts, versus also the guardrails around it saying you must not do X or Y, and you're only connected to certain tooling at this stage or other agents in certain areas. If it's a very deterministic area, I take complaints again. Well, that is going to be quite restricted. So I think this is probably where the difference is between public eye and people using things at scale and not really know what they're doing, versus quite a regulated environment in Lloyds, but doing it in all the right way, where you still get the advantages, but in a safe, guarded way.
Okay. Great answer. My other question is, it's a pretty basic one, is just how are agents being produced in Lloyds? Is it a centralized function that just produces all the agents, or is everyone in the business basically being given free rein to say, like, go out, be creative, create your own agents?
I think just to bring into context the Lloyds structure, like how it's like you have kind of core centralized enabling functions. You have platforms where delivered change on behalf of the business, and then you have real hard-hitting business spaces that have no tech but dealing with customers on the front line. And the platform and the business sometimes merge when we're obviously delivering stuff into the business area. So if you think about it in those three different buckets, but not always in buckets because they overlap sometimes. How are we delivering them? Safe to say, like, if we wait on one team, the enabling function, we'll be well behind the curve. And if we are waited for one team to help us come up with the Gen AI solutions that I talked about earlier from last year and the year before, we wouldn't have ever delivered anything. So in the size of Lloyds, and bearing in mind that you need to have the business context, there's a hub and spoke model kind of going on. So you'll get your core capabilities at a bank-wide perspective, which would be quite generic, the wrong word for it, but like widespread to cover Lloyds as a financial company in the financial industry, versus bespoke, kind of like, right, we're in this business area, very regulated. We need to do very deterministic stuff, versus a different area where you've got a bit that can be non-deterministic and have agents to undertake activities for you using the bank's core centralized capability.
Okay, great. Thanks. Thanks for that. That's a great answer. Moving on, as we sort of wrap up here and come up against time, it's very clear that there's going to be a different set of skills needed for the workforce for the future.
Yeah.
So how are you prepping Lloyd's workforce for this AI era?
Yeah. So not going to be one answer to this, as always. Never should it be either. Couple of things that we're doing, or a number of things we're doing. We're sending all our leaders, so top 300 leaders, have gone to Cambridge University. They're doing a 6-month program on AI in general, from AI history to ethics, and a second cohort going through it right now. So got our leaders going to Cambridge and back to school. We've rolled out, last year we rolled out things like data summer schools, where we had thousands of people getting involved in understanding data and the summer school activities. But this year we've launched an AI Academy across everyone in the whole organization. I mean, I feel like that's unheard of in the industry to do 70,000 people to go through an AI Academy where it's a good 2 to 3 month course process of 35 modules each perhaps, and you either a user of it or you're a leader of it or you're a builder. You've got different pathways to go down. We've rolled out Copilot across all of the main areas of the business that need it. We've done Copilot GitHub as well to our engineering community. So this is like we're actually using the technology, making sure our operational staff can actually use the technology to talk about it in front of the customer. There is a whole intake of recruitment going up right now in terms of graduates or data scientists coming through. We've got 250 with 50 plus of them, 30 to 50 of them who have got PhDs in doctors of data scientists. So real good thought leadership across the organization. And we've got reskilling programs where people can opt in to actually do a new skill and figure out where they want to land up in the future. And all of this with the fact that, we're keeping colleagues in the loop of our solutions. We're thinking about what their jobs are for here, now, and future, planning that in so that we've got the human in the loop at all times to ensure that we're doing the right thing, and watching the industry move at a pace. So, we all know that in the IT sense, if software engineering sense, we're seeing how people are using tools today to be more efficient in their job. So, yeah, quite a few range of stuff that we're doing across the board that I'm quite proud of.
Yeah, great. Final question. The name of the podcast is Control Alt Lead. We obviously focus on leadership. So I'd love to ask you, your own leadership journey, what strengths do you think have served you best in the, throughout your career and getting to the point where you are?
Yeah, thank you. And you knew I love this one, Tom. It's, I am dyslexic. So, and I've known since school, I used to have extra time on tests and stuff at assessment. I was about 12 or maybe a bit later. So I think from a leader point of view, I've come through my whole life knowing that I'm never going to be strong in certain areas. Mind you, actually, with the AI solutions of today, summarizing documents and doing my spelling, it's like a thing of the past maybe. But anyway, on the side, that's a different side note. I guess from a leadership quality, I've always done strength-based leadership and giving empowerment to my directs wherever possible. So I know I ain't going to be the best speller or not going to be able to read a 300-page contract, but I know how to break down problems and how to put it back together again. I know some of my critical thinking, my mathematics is on the opposite side of the scale. So my maths are insane, which is brilliant for the data scientist space right now. So I think for leaders out there, you definitely don't know it all. You definitely shouldn't know it. You should lean on your team and empower them to all be responsible for what they do. Give them purpose and clarity. Be really clear on your communications, which I think I do well. Mainly because I have to keep it simple because I'm not one for big words and I'm not one for trying to be something I'm not. So be really clear on your communication, be there to unblock problems, ensure that your storytelling successes for your team always, hence why I'm here today, because I'm proud of Lloyds and I'm proud of my team. So keen that people hear about what we've done. And yeah, just be authentic as well, like show your vulnerabilities. I mean, my team probably get fed up with the fact that I tell people that I'm dyslexic or other things that are going on in my life at the time, because you just want to bring your whole self to work. It might be a day you're just not up to 100% of your energy levels because a 3-year-old son might have kept you up at 5 a.m. this morning. That is a true story. But anyway, so yeah, that would be my feedback to anyone listening, leader who look after any cohort of people. I'm really lucky to look after a couple of digital labs, like I said, with two to 300 people. So every day is a new learning day, as I said.
Brilliant. Big thank you so much for joining me. And that's that. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
And thank you to you, our audience and listeners, for joining us for this episode of Control Alt Read. This was our last episode of the season. We'll be taking a break through the next month and back in April. Until then, stay tuned to computing.co.uk for more IT research, news, and analysis. See you soon.